Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. Unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Welcome back to a special edition of the Wolff Den. I am Art Vandelay filling in for Matt Wolff tonight. Today we have a special episode for you. Chris and Tony have joined us. Welcome to the Wolff Den. That video used to get me like the first maybe 5 years after it ended. I can, now it's like a million times, all different things have gone on, but that clip would get me right in the feels.
Yeah, a couple of things about that clip. One, I believe Skip Collector probably put that together, and we had him on our podcast, actually, editor for Seinfeld. He talked about putting that together with us. And I don't know, it always rubbed me the wrong way using that song. I wasn't a big Green Day was the hit back then. I don't know. It was a little too wishy-washy, a show that doesn't cry. All of a sudden, you're going to try and make us cry at the end. I don't know if I really loved it. I get what they were going for, and I get that, they got to throw some sort of emotion in. I think I might have dragged that a little too long, but I get their sentiment, and what are you going to do? But we're big fans of Peter Melman, who put together the 100 episode, whole episode, which is great with the clips and the cuts and everything like that. He kind of pieced together by category and whatnot. But anyway, I jumped in there, but I had to say something. Just like you said, of course it's going to get you. It's got every scene. It's got the song. You're going to get choked up for sure. But I don't like that they went that route. Sometimes it bothers me.
I love Green Day, but I get the point about the sad kind of thing, putting on but they were wrapping it up. I think it was more of like, we're wrapping it up in a bow. We're sad about the whole thing. Maybe you should be too. Who knows? Tell everybody quickly who you guys are, and let's get into it.
Go ahead, Tony.
We're the co-hosts and co-creators of this podcast. Is making me thirsty. Number one destination for Seinfeld fans. We've been friends since we were 7 years old. We've watched Seinfeld since it aired on day one live, and haven't looked back since. And we've talked to over 100 guest stars and writers, crew, super fans, you name it. And definitely happy to be here, man.
Yeah, we started this just about 3 years ago to the date almost. During COVID, needed something to do, and one thing we could always talk about was Seinfeld. So it's been an honor, and I'm glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk. Seinfeld is my favorite show of all time. I believe it's the best show in the history of television. And, look, that's always so subjective. This will throw you for a loop probably. Give me one show that you can make an argument might be better than Seinfeld if you had to pick.
Are we talking any genre?
Yeah, I would
or
say
just
it's gotta be a
sitcoms?
sitcom. I'd say it's got to be a sitcom.
If it's got to be a sitcom, I mean, Cheers is really good. After that, I mean, I wasn't into All in the Family, but I'm sure people will make that argument that were there at the time. But yeah, The Simpsons maybe, but it's just too long. I think eventually you just have to, at that point, cut it out of the thing. And it's also a cartoon, but maybe O'Hara's a couple of other sitcom wise. I mean, maybe Cheers is the only other one I would compare it to.
Yeah, I'd say Cheers. But there's a reason I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners. They're still airing today. Like that's not by dumb luck. So, as a historian, you got to put those up there. But yeah, for our money, it's Seinfeld. I mean, it's Seinfeld seasons one through 6, I would say. But we can get into that.
No, I know. I'll probably disagree with you on that when we get into it, but that's fine. That's what it's all in the eye of the beholder. I mean, MASH had the numbers, so that's what everyone used to think, right? MASH had the series finale with some astronomical number at that time, and so when people were saying what's the best show, they were saying, well, maybe MASH is it.
A different era. Listen, there was only 3 networks back then, but yeah, MASH holds a record over 100 million. I mean, only the Super Bowl beats that, so it will never be touched. Obviously with the how many streaming services we have now and cable TV, the whole thing. So, but it's not all about numbers, as we know. The greatest episodes in Seinfeld ran on Wednesday night. So, and only about they average about 16 million viewers versus 33 million watching the Frogger, for crying out loud. So it's not all about numbers.
Dave Buck with The Office, great show. I'm not sure it's even close, but it's a great show.
The Office, I'm not going to say that I can't poo-poo The Office because I did go through it. I didn't really watch The Office when it was live, but I went through a stage where I watched all the reruns and all the way through. The only thing I would say there is it does the gimmick that everything else does. Let's get these two people together, the love, all that shit with the Pam and the dude. Right there, you lose me. Seinfeld didn't do that ever, and that's why it's the best. It didn't do Ross and Rachel, didn't do fucking even Sam and Diane. I mean, I brought up Cheers, but they ran the gimmick too, and Seinfeld never did.
They had the anti-gimmick, like the whole Jerry and Elaine. That was like the anti.
I don't think relationship humor is really what the show's all about, as George says during the show within the show pilot. So I think Larry David probably really said that you have to guess.
So Brent, a good friend of mine, is the biggest Seinfeld fan I know. We've had some game nights, and I might have won, my other friend, but he knows everything, almost probably in the way that you guys do. The episode name, what else happened, he knows is good. So it's good to have him in the crowd, and he'll get some good questions for you, I'm sure. You said this is a pandemic thing. Did you guys come together and said, we should do a podcast? What are we going to do about it? Or did you come and say, let's do something around Seinfeld?
Yeah. So, I mean, like O'Hara said, the pandemic started, right? I was just thinking, here's the thing, like we could talk about it. We made this podcast about anything. I mean, O'Hara will probably have a good rapport and that sort of thing. But like we mentioned, we used to talk about Seinfeld in our freshman year biology class. Correct me if I'm wrong, O'Hara. And that was right when reruns started, pretty much on PIX, right? We talk about the 11:30 show. Anyway, I knew we could talk Seinfeld all day. So if we're going to do something, let's do Seinfeld. I call him my Larry David. I did a few podcasts by myself years ago, tried to do this shit. It never worked out. I'm like, I need someone who's going to be able to run this thing right. And so I just texted him, and here we are 3 years later. I mean, it's a grind, man, as you know.
Yeah, I do. So it's funny because I think I might have put in the promo, like, we're talking about a show about nothing. This is a show about nothing. The Wolff Den is a show about nothing. Eventually it would be a podcast about nothing. And I say that because it's all about who I bring on. They don't come on to see me. It's who I bring on. And it's not about anything. It's about whatever you guys talk about. And then we just sort of have a conversation. It's not by design or anything. That's just the way it is. But I could sit here and have a conversation with you guys for hours and hours about Seinfeld. But if it was just me talking about Seinfeld, it would be a huge struggle. So I get where you're coming from now with having the co-host. And it's why I did a show with a guest instead of just me kind of talking about something. I could have done it with, I like a PTI type thing. I've dabbled in doing a PTI type show with sports and then entertainment and then, some third segment. But you really have to know a lot about something to do a show about something.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, the show evolved, if you will. I mean, the first 20 episodes were just going season by season, what we liked, what we didn't like. But where it all changed was when we started getting guests, and then it took off, and
Chris's idea. I didn't even come to ever cross my mind that we could have guests. And this kid.
Well, you got to have, if you wanted sustainability, that's what we had to do. So, we started off with some guests we knew in like the New York market from WFAN and Sports Illustrated. And then hit gold when we found Jimmy, Anthony Stark, who played Jimmy. And then from there, for the next 2.5 years, we've had over 150 guests, from guest stars to writers, producers to the hair lady, you name it. So it's been a lot of fun, and yeah, you got to know your stuff when you're talking to these people, because if not, they'll carve you up.
And also when you're talking about it, because if you're talking about something and I'm watching this and you make a mistake, there's gonna be someone in the comments who's gonna be like, "What are you talking about? How do you not know that?" And it was I'm gonna get to an example of.
Well, that's why I'm glad this is live, because Tony is the editor, so he usually edits out when he fucks up, and he leaves my mess ups in there.
All right, look, some of my greatest moments on the show.
O'Hara always says our thing is not trivia, right? So we know it, definitely know it, but there might be people that know the show trivia better than us. I mean, I'll pick the Pepsi challenge, but I'm not going to say I don't know everything, right? But and you'll find this out if you don't already know it. It sounds like you do. We tend to kind of bother a lot of fans, saying we're not real fans because we don't like the Frogger per se, or we don't, think yada 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 is a great episode, right? So you're not real fans. It's like, listen, man, we watched seasons 1 through 4 live when they happen, and then 100 times over on reruns. I wrote a paper about Seinfeld for my master's degree. I mean, we definitely know what we're talking about, but as you said before, it's in the eye of the beholder, right? Then it just becomes a debate or a discussion, which is great. That's what the show's all about, right? We do a segment now on our show called 2 Up and 2 Down that O'Hara came up with, where we got to give 2 positive and 2 negative about every episode. So for great episodes, it's very hard to find downs, right? And for episodes we hate, we got to find ups. And so it gives everything, gives you a good sense of what, that we don't, just because it's an F as a Seinfeld episode, it doesn't mean it's like, it's still Seinfeld, right? So we're all on the same page here. So anyone out there who doesn't like us because we were, hard on those seasons, just relax. We're fans of the show here. All right.
Yeah, I agree with that, because, and we'll probably disagree on some of the things. Like, I love Seinfeld. I don't even know if there's an episode I didn't really like. There's episodes I like better than the others, but there was always something in there that caught me to be like, that made it a good episode to me. And, for me, that's what it was about. It wasn't always about, because I don't know that if I didn't go through it as like you have, but if I go through it the way you have, I don't know that I'm going to find a ton of ridiculously great episodes where everything hit, right? Like, there's going to be some scenes that I'm just like, in even some of the greatest episodes that I think. I haven't watched it like you have recently. So is that something that you believe also, or no? You think there are some that just hit from start to finish?
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, listen, the way we look at it now, we're fans, but we're analysts. Like, we try to be objective, and we try to put an analyst hat on. But there are some that just, I mean, Keith Hernandez, or the Contest, or the Hamptons. I mean,
you're not finding a flaw in the Hamptons.
It's hard to find any down spots there. But again, I think, to your point, it's in the eye of the beholder. Like, you might find some downspots there. Like, I don't think that was that funny, right? And that's fine. Just the way, we'll rip seasons 8 and 9 where we don't think things are funny. So,
I just learned about your podcast recently. I don't know why. I'm not really a podcast guy, because I have to Where the
hell have you been?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought you've been watching us since day one, man.
I have to be paying attention. It's hard for me to just dedicate. Some people can listen to it in the background. I really want to pay attention and listen. So I'll keep rewinding. But I did watch some of your
got the video on YouTube too, man.
Yeah, I watched Greenies. I thought that was great. I watched with Jackie Charles. I watched some of your rankings at the beginning. Now, like I said, I didn't think those were compelling episodes. Is that because it's just you weren't really talking about the episodes that much, or is that because it was sort of your first 20? Like I'm at 280. If you go back to my first 50, you're probably like, this guy didn't know what the hell he's doing.
Our first 20 are actually, I believe, behind a paywall now, to be honest. But we have clips on YouTube of some of those episodes. I thought I put those behind a paywall.
No, I'm saying like maybe it was 21 to 25 where you were ranking.
Yes, those are still up. Yes, and those were our last. So as Chris mentioned, we did basically 20 episodes where we went through every single season and every single episode, and then basically 21, the ones you're talking about, we ranked them. And we have those rankings, and we kind of stuck by them, but we say that we always, we can always go back and tweak because you never know these things. Yeah.
But to your point, yes, those are early on. We were still, getting our sea legs.
High school shit. We didn't know. Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing.
Which is why we're now reintroducing rankings in a different type of way with 2 up and 2 down. So you'll get the full kind of connection piece there.
Yeah, I like that. One of the things Greeny said, he misstaked. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank on it. He was talking about an episode, and he mistook the location of what he was trying to say, and then you guys corrected it at the end. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, listen.
Go ahead, Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're good to our guests. We're not going to call them out and put them on the spot. Do people get, to your point, people get things wrong? Yes. Yeah, for the most part, we let it slide, and,
We've had guests. It's been awkward sometimes where we kind of know they're wrong, but you don't want to like call them out right there on the spot. Because
I would have corrected them just for the sake of the show, but I get it. I get it. My friend Brent, again, one episode I didn't like. George and the Deerest with Jerry.
One of our worst of all time.
What's your first 5 now?
One of our worst of all time. I
hated it. Worst of all.
I think we ranked it second to last, maybe.
Dead last.
You guys ranked it very low.
Oh yeah, dead last. It's our least favorite episode.
I liked it. I thought there was some funny,
Oh, people love it. Oh, believe me, we know people love it. We get it all the time. Yeah,
But I also didn't rank. If I went back and ranked it, there's probably a different story. I want to show you, and probably similar to what you guys did. So this was me.
Yeah.
This was me. I watched it live until I got to college.
Love to see VHS. We had them too. Nice.
And then I started taping it, because I couldn't watch. It was Thursday night. I'm in college. I'm not sitting to watch it. So most of mine I watched live until I had to watch it on tape.
Same as
and
us.
Then,
Same as us.
it became on reruns where, they try and piece it together, but it's very possible that you watched 75% of your Seinfeld out of order, which is fine because it doesn't matter necessarily.
We think it does, though. I think it does. I think it means a lot there. And I talk about this point a lot, actually, because I think it does matter. I think it does matter watching it in order and understanding. It's like, I use this analogy all the time. Like I became a Bob Dylan fan when I was like 21, and I listened to his albums in order from the first. I got his first album, then I got Freewheelin', and I went in order because you got to hear what you got to hear it because it's in the context of when it happened, right? If you just watch the dealership, you might think it's really funny, but if you see George O'Hara and the Keith Hernandez in Mrs. Sokol's office, and you think that's the same guy that's in the Frogger, I mean, come on, it's a completely different character, right? So you got to know that context before you start watching a season 9 episode. You have to kind of see it and how it's 2 different characters. And we always say it's a different George, a completely different George. The ho George is not the same who's in Sokol's office, right? Or Lippman's office. Is that wrong, right? These are 2 different Georges. So you gotta get that.
Your buddy's right. If the dealership's on, I'm turning the channel. Not watching it.
But if I want to enjoy it more, I watch it in order. But on its own, I can watch all the episodes separate and really enjoy the show. That was my point.
I might have misspoke. What I'm saying is a new fan of the show. Like, if you've already seen them, then of course you're going to be able to watch them out of order. I'm talking about like a new fan who's like just getting into the show now, especially now it's on streaming. I suggest they go to the beginning and kind of watch it that way. That was kind of my point. Like, of course, bouncing around is fun.
A big purchase I made back in the day is
nice VHS,
season 1, 2, and 3 on Seinfeld, and I never even watched it. I haven't even opened it because I've seen all of them, and it's like I'll watch them, and now it's streaming, and I haven't gone through, which I'd like to do the way that you guys do, and watch all the episodes, and maybe do rankings. I always thought it would be fun to do something like that. But now it's like, and you can go on and watch it. And I think because it's now, there'll be a new wave of, it won't be as much because you talked with Greeny about this. Today it's like they might not understand because of the pop culture and the references that were timely on Seinfeld.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's generational, right? Like, my father loving what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his name, Mel Brooks, and sometimes I watch some of that stuff and I don't know, it didn't pop, So I think it's just one of those things. But I think there is a small contingent of younger people. Greeny, his kids know, but we talked to many others where it is the case and they love Seinfeld. So we'll see. I think funny's funny at the end of the day. Yeah, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have the internet, all that stuff. But I think at the core of what this show is, two guys acting like immature idiots, that's everlasting.
I should have a show. I should have my own show. With even Brent, we could have our own show. I can have my own show with 3 or 4 of my friends. Different shows, idiots, 2 guys acting like idiots, talking about nothing. My wife would be like, "What do you talk to your friends about?" And your brother, or you're on the phone. I'm like, we talk about nothing. We text about nothing. It's the dumbest thing. Nobody listening into it would think this is a thrilling conversation. And we say the stupidest things to each other. And it's fun. And we laugh. And half of it could be referencing Seinfeld. Or we do a lot of movie quotes too. But Seinfeld was always, the show that we quote a lot. I have one friend of mine who literally turns every situation and compares it to a Seinfeld thing. I think it's a little much because he stretches it sometimes. When it is time to have when it's time to compare it, then it's usually like it makes sense. Like you said before, when Tony shows up late, you know how to hold the reservation. Well, we use that all the time, right? That's just a classic that everyone uses. And then the other one, it was the Chinese restaurant. That was it. The episode with the Chinese restaurant, Greeny said it was something else. You gotta watch it. It was just like, and I'm like, no, it's the restaurant. It was that's where they filmed it there. And he called out. He was on the payphone trying to get to talk to Tatiana. That was it.
Yeah.
You have to watch it again. It was just, I was waiting for you guys to say no. It was the Chinese restaurant because that's one of my favorite episodes. And I say, to my friend, I'm like, of course I'm not Cartwright.
Classic. Yeah. I mean, listen, do we, we give some people a pass.
I get that. How do you get the guests? Because it's hard. I've gotten some really high profile names on the show, and I reach out to everybody. How do you get your guests, and who have you reached out to who has said no? Not who hasn't responded, because you're going to get a ton of that. Who have you reached out to where you've had a pitch, even if it was just a tiny whatever, and they said no? If you can share any of that.
Oh, plenty.
And have said no.
Oh, yeah. Said no. Richard Fancy, Michael Richards, you name it. But we hit them on a variety of ways, either through their agent, through social. We don't want to give away all our secrets.
Right. Because it's a grind, man. That's what I would say. I mean, some people we waited for a year before they actually came on. Like you said, they don't say no. Just, you never know.
You do. Yeah. We've had interactions going on almost 2 years with some people. Then we finally get them. It's,
I ask everyone. I've asked Howard Stern, Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Gary Vee. I've asked them all to come on my show.
You got it. I mean, why not? Right? You never know, man. I mean, yeah.
That's a weird thing to me. Like the only one I could think of the only two I could think of who really should say no to you if they were going to say no is Jerry and Larry. That's it. Everyone, maybe Elaine. I mean, what's Michael Richards doing right now?
I don't think any of them should say no. I mean,
I don't either. I agree with you.
But, we're keeping this flame lit, and putting a nice touch on what a great thing they've done throughout all these years. So yeah, we'd love to have Larry. You forget it. He just you can't find him anywhere. Jerry, he'll respond here and there, but for the most part, he's declined.
Do you think you'll have them all on before you finish, or will you not finish till you have them all on?
If it happens, it happens. But honestly, the what we've built is kind of outside the main four. So we've had Peter Melman, one of the greatest writers on. We've had a lot of the people from the beginning, like we said, over 150 guest stars. We had the casting director. I mean, like, this stuff is super interesting.
Exactly.
I don't know how much we're going to get from Jerry. Of course, we'd love to have him on the show, but kind of how the show was built. We've got so many more learnings across the board about the Big Four.
If you can pick one out of the Big Four and Larry, who would you pick to come on the show?
I mean, to me, I think that's a good question. I mean, obviously it's Larry. I just think obviously, but that's goes without saying, I think. But of the four main, I'd like to have Michael Richards, just because of everything we've heard. Every single guest star we've talked to has talked about Michael Richards in a very positive light. And the guy got, what happened to him. But I mean, that would be a huge get. The guy hasn't been, he's been kind of, I don't want to say in hiding, but you don't see him much, right? So that would be a huge get. But I mean, to be honest, our big two, at least I'll speak for me, I think O'Hara probably agree. Larry Charles and Tom Sharones would probably be bigger than those four, and Larry, we'd get more out of them, put it that way, and they'd give us more. But yeah.
I like Kramer would be great. I think Larry David would get more in the weeds with us. Like, what was he thinking on this episode, or what he wrote here, versus I think Jerry would just be, maybe he'd give you a lot, but I think Larry would probably get more in the weeds, which we'd enjoy.
Well, I don't understand why Michael Richards is gone. I mean, there's so many, like, you look at people like Louis C.K. and all these people who've been in controversy over racist remarks, and I would think it's time for him to come back and just,
you'd have to think at this point it might even be on him. Maybe he doesn't want to come back. That's
I think so.
Like, who knows? But we've had a great conversation with his ex-girlfriend for a long time. It was a great get we had, Ann Tallman, and she told us some great stories about him. And so I don't know.
Well, and you forget, after Seinfeld, he had the Michael Richards show. Like, he had things going on that weren't Seinfeld. So maybe, listen, he had a hell of a run. Maybe he doesn't want to come back, or maybe, the offers aren't there and there you go. There's Kramer with the $1 bill.
I got more. I want to show you more of my show and tell. Do you guys have any of the Funkos?
I don't have the Funkos, but man, I wish I had you doing the show and tell thing. I don't know if Chris told you before. My whole house kind of flooded, so I'm outside right now. But my backdrop usually, a great fan of ours, Alien Wrangler. I'll call him out, give him a shout out. He made the statue replica. Like, he got the actual prop piece at a sale in LA and cast it and made the statue and sent it to us. Yeah, those are cool, man. Nice.
I told my sister I wanted them. So I got Jerry with the Pez, I got Kramer, I got the puffy shirt, I got Newman and Holistic. And then they also have just regular, like, Jerry, and I'm like, I don't want these regular ones when I have these. Like, why would I want the regular ones? And while we're doing the show and tell, I bought this, the little people set. I know there's a full-sized
I got the Lego thing I built back there.
Cool. I thought it was like, maybe it's, I mean, obviously some things we have just because it's Seinfeld, and some things we think are just like really awesome. What's your favorite Seinfeld?
That guy Alien Wrangler, not only did he make the statue for us, then he made the bounce check from the Jerry, the little Jerry Seinfeld. He made a replica of that. Newman's postal card that just says Newman on it. So yeah, there's a lot of those things out there, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we got I'm not a big memorabilia guy, whatever. I got the old TV guide here. That's a big life-size poster. But upcoming guest Tim Kaiser, who's one of the founders, main executive producers throughout the whole run. He's got some really good stories about memorabilia when they shut down the set. And Jerry, if I forgot it, we taped it a while ago. It's going to come live soon. But Jerry stormed onto these other sets because people were stealing memorabilia from the Seinfeld set, like security guards and stuff. And Jerry lit them all up. So it was pretty funny to hear that.
So you said you're not memorabilia. Is that your favorite, the TV guide or the
Of Seinfeld stuff?
Yeah, you can only keep one of your Seinfeld stuff. What would you keep?
That's all I got, man. The rest is just up here.
Tony?
The statue, the Alien, when Alien Wrangler sent that statue, man, I was so happy that O'Hara let me keep because he only made one and he sent it to us. That I wish I could show it to you guys. If you watch the podcast, you'll see it behind me all the time. But oh yeah, we got it.
There you go. Those are pretty good too. Pretzels making me thirsty. Pint glasses. I like it. I'm going to show you my favorite memorabilia. Maybe my favorite memorabilia of anything. One of them, but it's my favorite. I'm going to give a shout out to Two Things, and this is my favorite. It's a guy who does exactly what it says. Two things. You pick any two things, and he paints a canvas for you. This is the print, but I have a big canvas in my man cave, and my two things were Seinfeld and Family Guy, and this is what he put in.
Cool. But you take Seinfeld over Family Guy, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, Seinfeld over Family Guy. Although Stewie would give me a run for the money for the favorite character of any of them, my favorite character of all time. I feel like my favorite character is probably George, but Kramer is like right there. I think the two of them are ahead of Elaine and Jerry. Do you get the sense that most Seinfeld fans feel that way?
I think so. I think Greeny touched on that as well when we spoke to him, although he thought Kramer was the most consistent. Yeah, I think Kramer and George for the most part. Then you ask around Twitter, you will get some love for Elaine. Peter Melman, his favorite was Elaine, who was one of the main writers. Yeah, Jerry, for me, Jerry was the most consistent from season 1 through season 8. There weren't many dips with him, so I appreciate his consistency. And the more I think about it, we always say George is the kind of best character of all time, but I mean, 7, 8, 9, he really takes dips. So I don't know. It's a good argument, good debate on who you're
there a lot more than Kramer. So if his excellence was more like there was more of him, that was just maybe my thinking.
More of him in what sense? That he was in more episodes, or just
more screen time?
Yeah, I mean, of the big four, I mean, he missed the Chinese restaurant, for instance. He missed the pen.
Yeah, he told them never again. I heard that's how the story goes anyway. That he flipped out when he wasn't in the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I'm sorry.
If you pick Kramer as your favorite.
Call me out. Your fans gonna call me out there in the trivia. By the way, I called myself. Sorry.
You pick Kramer, you're gonna get no argument here.
Yeah, give me a under the radar line that maybe you don't hear as much, but it's for you.
She's got a great body, buddy.
Oh man, we use that so much times, my
so
friend.
It's not under the radar, all right?
No, that is. But my friend Brent, he says that all the time, and his underrated is "You're a cashier."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Very good.
Cashier is a good one. I like the ones that are like lines, like almost like a quote, like a great throwaway Costanza lines. If I had a mantle growing up, I'd be a totally different person. I love lines like that where it just like it hits so well. You're like, that's true. I would be a totally different mantle growing up. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's one of those things.
Those are great, or even a throwaway line. There's two lines right away when you call this coffee and George throws a coffee and then he sees Mrs. Enright. He just yells, "Mrs. Enright!" Like it's more like moment lines that I think about.
My wallet's gone.
But every time I have you call this coffee? Like it is a ton. I mean, it's hard to pick. We've talked about. We try to stay away from the gimmicky, no soup for you, yada yada stuff. It's you're a cashier, stuff like that is more hits home for us more for sure.
I like one of my favorites that I use is I hope my parents go well before I do.
That's a good one too. Yeah.
Let's go back to the podcast. If you could have any of these guys we said, who would you want? If there's one question that you want to know about Seinfeld and they have to absolutely tell the truth, what would you like to know? It could be anything about the show, about the person, the characters, a story. What would you like to know? And you're going to ask from one of the the main four or Larry, and they have to tell you the truth. Because you never know. I mean, we talk to these people, they're actors, right? They can tell you whatever they want. Also, some things they're never going to tell. They'll take to their grave, whatever it is. If there's one question that you automatically will get the 100% truth as an answer, what question would you like to know?
I would like to know whose decision the shift in tone was after season 5. If you watch the show after season 5, when Larry Charles and Tom Sharonis leave, there's a shift in the show, and it's evident. Everyone talks about it. It's a shift in the show. It goes from less dark to more sitcom. It's still Seinfeld. It's still great. There's great episodes in season 6, episode 7, but there's a shift. And is it just their departure, or was there actually, Jerry sat down and said, we can't keep doing these dark stuff because we don't have the ratings? I don't know. There was a decision made, the tone change, and I'd like to know who's at the bottom of it.
So I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch to really notice that. I've seen every episode probably 10, 15 times each. And I don't know. I can tell, obviously, I thought the show was better. It didn't always get better. Like maybe there was, a mountain, but I don't know. I'd have to go look. I think people like you who watch all of that have a better way to see something like that. And if I'm just watching shows on TBS and I don't even know I couldn't even tell you what season these, that's how I can tell you so many things about so many episodes and answer questions and all this. It almost was funny because again, I watched the Greenie episode and he said, like, I didn't know the titles until I was looking on Netflix. Right. I haven't watched any on Netflix yet. But I don't know.
Listen, go watch The Dealership that you mentioned, and then go watch The Subway, and you'll have your answer.
Well, you're saying just by the not because it was funny, or just it was a different
tone. It's the tone. It's hard. It's a tone. The earlier seasons had a darkness to the tone of the show, the overall ambience, the grittiness, the subject matter. I mean, if you watched, especially Larry Charles episodes, like the limo, and these things didn't happen on television. Look at the what is it? The baby shower. Jerry gets shot for the illegal cable with an undercover FBI agent in a dream sequence in a sitcom on Wednesday night. That didn't happen. That's what I mean by you have to have watched it. Like that wasn't happening. If you watch sitcoms all your life, right? Did you ever see the main star of the show get shot in a comedic scene during a dream sequence? You couldn't even tell if it was a dream or not when it was first happening. I mean, these things are the limo, the subway. I mean, these were some dark, the jacket, the pony remark.
Versus George banging on a candy machine to get a Twix out. Now, I don't know. To each their own, but it's just it was more gimmicky than smart, and I think that was also
right when the guy came in and said there was donuts. And he ate the last one. I don't know.
No one's arguing that it's not funny. I mean, that's where I think, as O'Hara said earlier, we're analysts at this point.
No, I know.
Yeah, it's funny. Of course, it's funny. I mean, it's just a matter of what's the humor, right? Like, there's different senses of humor. Like, it's just a different kind of show at that point. Like, that's all.
I know you have it on for the people again. I encourage everyone to watch the podcast because there's great guests. And there's great information in the way that you break down the shows. What's your favorite episode for the people who haven't seen that?
For our podcast?
Number one. What's your number one episode as a viewer?
Oh, wait, hold on. Of Seinfeld, the show, or the podcast?
No, the show.
Well, we have rankings and,
if someone says, what's their favorite, what do you say generally?
Well, generally, there's a top 5 that can be rotated. That's how we try to answer it for the most part. So, and again, we ranked on a blend. So we had different number ones. It was anywhere from Tippy Toe, Lemon Tree, to the contest, to the limo, or kind of in our marine biologist.
Red Dot.
They can all Red Dot. Those can all interchange within the top 5. But
that's another one I use a lot. Was that wrong?
Right,
exactly. And so was that wrong? Yeah, exactly.
What's the most popular episode just based on what people, if you went on the streets and what people are there. Was it? I thought it was the contest, but
I think it's the marine biologist.
Yeah, Chris
It's,
goes by the marine biologist.
whenever we put that out there, it gets the most traction from even the people who love, the soup Nazi and everything, to people who love the contest. I mean, Greeny mentioned that line. I think at the end of the day, the marine biologist typically floats to the top in America.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I couldn't even tell you. I really don't. I love the thing about me as a fan is I love, and this is what's going to get, the best episode for each character. I love scenes that don't necessarily mean I love that episode, but it's like I love, certain bits.
That question Brent's asking: what episode has all four having the best, or which is the best
your
episode
favorite
for each one?
episode that has Kramer? What's your favorite episode that has Elaine?
All right.
You say I'll give it. He says Kramer in the calzones.
It was great.
Calzones, yeah, I agree. We talked to that guy behind the counter too. Great guy.
What's your favorite Kramer moment in the show? Let's just say.
That's a really good question.
I'll give you a Kramer one here. I like the parking spot with Kramer. That's where George and Moffat argue over the parking spot, and
Jordan, your phone's so phony.
Yeah, but Kramer's so involved in everything, like fight with Jerry in the beginning. He doesn't care if George is sorry, and he's taking sides. Like, it's just a complete Kramer. He calls the woman pregnant when she's not, like saying stupid things. Like, there's a lot of good Kramer there that people. But again, that might not jump out to the Pink Hat fans out there. But for us, that early like season 3 Kramer, nothing better.
Yeah, my favorite Kramer, the Kramer that got me to be a fan of Seinfeld, the statue Kramer. I know about the statue before, but that's like when Kramer was like, he comes in, he gets the statue back from the guys, like make it left to the wall, pervert and all that stuff. That's good Kramer too.
That's for me, for Elaine. There's two things that speak out. One is when she became dumb and she's just standing in front of the wheel and she's going like this. That's one of my favorite Elaine moments. And the other one is when she's talking to, when she's talking about Kramer and the late Wendy, and she's like, "No, I'm just thinking about the question." When she says, "Was there something wrong with him?" And she's like, "No, I'm just thinking about the question."
Yeah. We like cutesy Elaine. O'Hara likes to call it cutesy Elaine when she has the poof. I think Elaine's great actually in the contest with JFK Jr. I think Elaine's great with the catch-up scene stuff. I think
that's a good one.
Elaine the Van Wyck. Everyone loves the Van Wyck Elaine. Nip, you can't go wrong with Nip. A lot of good Elaine in there. This and that early on with Jerry. Pandy's mother it out for you. I mean, there's some good Elaine in there. Again, Elaine changed. Chris talks about this a lot. Like, of all the characters, George and Elaine changed the most in these seasons we're talking about, like the later seasons. They became kind of different, and Kramer and Jerry kind of stayed the same a bit more. So you got two different Elaines and two different Georges, really.
That's interesting because I'm going to watch it and see that. But we actually had two different Costanzas and Seinfelds, like right from the beginning.
You're talking about the fathers.
Fathers,
yeah. Interesting. I mean, think about it.
I think there was an upgrade on both of them, by the way. There's not enough sample maybe to see, but that seemed like a major home run.
Oh, forget about it. Jerry
Costanza.
Jerry Stiller, absolutely. I mean, think about it. We didn't see the Costanzas to what season? We didn't see Frank until season.
Contest. Well, it was
Frank.
The mom's first episode was the contest.
Yeah, but we didn't see Frank until season 5, and they reshot him for the handicap spot, which was season 4.
Right.
So yeah, they were critical to carrying the show in the later seasons for sure.
Yes, Brent's right. Kramer was hilarious in the Jamie episode. Agreed. It's one of his best.
I live on my own.
Yeah.
He likes what I do. That's what he says. He likes what I do. What do you do?
George, the episodes. I mean, God, there's so many good George.
Brent. No.
All over the place, Brent. Brent's going from bootlegger George. How do you go? Come on.
He likes my favorite George coincides with my favorite non-main character, and it's Jiffy Park. That guy is one of my favorites. He's like, he has to turn tricks in my car for starters. How's that?
Yeah. Huh.
I
Yeah,
love Jiffy
listen.
Park. You don't like the Jiffy Park guy.
Nah, Jiffy Park, another one I'll probably skip if it's on.
Yeah.
Really?
And again, that was with Susan was still involved. Like, you know, the whole cast hated Susan, for crying out loud. So I felt like that showed in those later episodes when they brought Susan back. I'm not talking season 4 Susan. I'm talking later Susan.
She'd be a
So,
good get.
But here's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain to you. You guys are looking at an episode. I'm looking at that 3-minute clip of George standing.
That's
talking
what
to
2
the
Up and
different
2 Down's all about, man. You're right. Good point. Yes, we're looking at his episodes when you bring it up like that. What you do though, what you just said about that, that's what we do 2 Up and 2 Down. That's why we do it, to find that one thing in that episode that made us laugh, right?
Yeah,
Or
almost everything I'm talking about is just about that clip and not about the episode.
That's
So,
fair.
and I could watch that clip and be like, yeah, the rest of the episode doesn't really hit me, but it's enjoyable watching. And I don't really laugh hilariously at Seinfeld just watching all the time, but I'm laughing very hard.
that's a good point. Yeah, because you remember like where you were when you heard it. You remember that what you said to a friend that reflected that same line. It's all encompassing. I hear you. But as just asking us, did you like that character during that show? We're going to tell you no.
No.
You know,
Okay.
we're gonna love George on the implant where he's double dipping and he's getting in a fight at a funeral with the girlfriend's brother. I mean, that's funny.
That episode with Double Dip the Chip, I mean, that's maybe a top 10, definitely 20.
Easy.
Right?
All timer.
You never see it on TBS. Rarely ever. I'm always, I got to go watch it. But man, what a great, because that guy is great. The other thing is, like as you keep watching it back, like the character who played that guy, you see him in all these commercials and this other stuff, and you're like, it just even makes it better to watch someone who is like almost watching, Tony. I mean,
well, and he was. We loved having Tony on the show. I mean, Dan Cortez. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, why this show is different is those guest stars. Like, you're like, oh, I know that guy. He was a double dip kid, or he was Hunky Tony. Like, you don't get that from
Anything
Cheers
else.
per se, or
you get it from the shows like The Office. And
You get it from The Simpsons and The Sopranos. That's it, for my money. That's the only thing where you get guests, and they're not nearly as good as Seinfeld's, where you're getting this many guest stars, their names, and all like the peripheral characters, like O'Hara's talking about. Like The Office. Who's on The Office? That's the main people in The Office. Who comes in?
I feel like they did. I don't know it as well.
They were just new people in The Office when they brought in Spader and these other people, but they weren't guest stars in one episode that you're rattling off.
It's not like knowing Babu. You know what I mean? Like
or Jimmy or the Moyle or Bookman or the Jiffy Park guy or any of these people. Like you remember all of them.
Bookman is his scene when he is really ranking on Jerry is just. I put that to me. That's a top. I don't have to even go. That's a top 20 Seinfeld moment. Okay, I'm not talking about episode. I'm talking about a clip for me.
No argument.
The Moyle, that scene where he goes on a rant. Another one. I mean, there are great people who just showed up once and that's it.
Well, that is the genius of Mark Hirschfeld, the casting director. I mean, absolute genius.
But don't you think you would have liked to seen them again in the same way that we saw Jackie Childs, maybe a second time?
You know what?
To get it back in.
They played out though. I think they played out Peterman. To be honest with you, they kind of brought Peterman back too much because they lean on it.
Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, less is more. Like, when you push things too much, that's it. I think they played it perfectly, especially in the early years. I think. Yeah, Jackie Chan. Listen, these guys weren't in as many episodes as you think. Peterman was in like 22, I think. Newman, who we thought was around forever, he was only in maybe a third of the episodes, maybe even less. So,
but that's a higher number of the non. That's probably like where the Costanzas are, and
there's Newman was in 48 actually. If you want to fact check me, Newman was in 48.
He was great. I mean, what took you so long? That's I use that GIF on Twitter, not even related to Seinfeld. Just like same with that's a shame. You guys have another bit on your podcast where people have to give like 18 quotes in 20 seconds, or is that or 20?
No, we don't do gimmicks.
We have something where people are rattling.
Oh, you might have seen the Mark Norman clip. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, maybe it was just once.
I only did it once. I put
Norman.
that together. I edited that together. Oh, that's what you. Yes, that. Oh, nice call, dude. Yeah, no, I think that's what he's talking about. Because I did. I basically cut up Mark Norman's appearance, a comedian who's actually open for Jerry and a big fan of Jerry's, and I cut up his episode with us for all of his Seinfeld references in like a 30-second clip. Yeah. We don't do that.
I thought that would be good to see how many someone can name.
It's not a bad idea now that you mentioned it, but no, this was just I just cut it. I just cut it up.
Definitely do that. That's a great. I was going to say I think that's great. I love Mark Norman. He is one of my probably top 10 favorite comedians right now. I listen to comedy on in the car. That's basically all I listen to. 90% of the time I'm in the car, I'm listening to comedy, and he's at the top of my list of people.
He's a friend of the show.
So I want to watch his episode, but I watch these other ones because I'm like, well, Mark Norman, I get his Seinfeld connection, but I'm like, it's not going to be as compelling as, someone who was on before, someone like Greenberg, who I know is a huge Seinfeld fan.
Norman's very knowledgeable across the board for that. So yeah, he was great.
Who do you guys like in comedy? Seinfeld was a comedian. That's what it all started from, right? He's a comedian, and it was a show, and that's why they kept him as a comedian on the show. Who do you like in comedy these days? What's your type of?
I was a big Norm Macdonald fan. I was a big Dave Attell fan. I think Dave Attell's the best I've ever seen live. Chappelle. I liked old Chappelle a little better than he was doing now. Louis C.K. I've always liked.
Nate Bargatze.
Yeah, Nate Bargatze's good.
He to me is a very Seinfeld-y, dry.
Well, yeah, him and Norman and Joe List. These guys all kind of grew up.
Our buddy Andy Fiore.
Yeah, Fiore's great. Yep.
Do you like that they had Seinfeld's clips before and at the end of the show? And do you think they should have done it more? Or would you think it was just right? Or you would have been happy without having it all?
You're talking about the stand-up within the show?
Stand-up at the beginning, right at the beginning before they go in, and sometimes at the end, and once in a blue moon.
Yeah, again, they got rid of that in the later years, which I disagreed with. I think the core of the show was the life of a stand-up. So I think weaving that in was kind of unique and different. I always enjoyed it. Sometimes it didn't always relate to the show, but it gave a good break. And I think opening it up with him is always a good thing. I mean, he's a stand-up comedian at his core.
And then he was in the show, and he was the main. It's called Seinfeld. I thought they could have done some more episodes of him doing like they did the one
movie
prop comic with the and then they did Kramer with his stand-up, and the one that who's the redhead?
Toby
Griffin starting now.
Kathy Griffin?
Yeah, Kathy Griffin. I thought there would be more.
That was a true story, by the way. If you want to go trivia, I believe she did meet Jerry, and he was not nice to her, so she did a whole routine with him about him on stage, like being an asshole, and then they brought her on the show for it. That's the story I heard. But yeah, the difference between the reason why the stand-up at the beginning, I mean, just look at the cold opens that they did in the later years. They were never good. And that's what they replaced it with. They replaced the stand-up with the cold opens that were they never hit for us anyway. They were just those silly talking things and stuff. I don't know.
Best looking Jerry girlfriend. Let's say best looking anyone.
And NYU in the outing, who we were lucky enough to talk to.
Wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a ton. I love Rebecca Staub. She was the PBS pledge drive for my money. Listen,
that's
Jerry.
That's good, bad. That's good, naked, bad, naked, isn't it?
No, good, naked, bad, naked. I don't know her real name. That's a blonde from a later episode. But let's be honest, Jerry didn't have any, stinkers. Let's put it that way. I love Winona. Winona's a big. I love to have. She was on the program as well. I mean, some of the women we've interviewed, still look good.
Did you get Janine Garofalo on?
Fuck her. We don't want her.
She's also impossible to get. Like, she's off social media. I don't think she has an agent. I saw her once at the Stand do comedy. Actually, Norman was on before her, And I didn't say anything to her, obviously, but yeah,
she's great at stand up. And that episode was funny because it was like, no, it was just like, all right, we're just gonna break up, and that just doesn't happen, right?
Dolores was another a great Jerry girl. I mean, there's a ton. So
another thing, I when we talk about my brother today, I have a twin brother, big Seinfeld fan also. And I told him about you guys coming on the show, and I was like, yeah, why don't you talk about Rogers? And I was like, well, I didn't know this until you guys talked to this with Greeny, that they never mentioned the Jets on the show. Right. And he's a big fan. It's like, it's a weird thing, right? Because they mentioned the Knicks and all. And I was surprised that for me, the best part about the Knicks being mentioned on the show is when Elaine said, I didn't know Reggie Miller's or Cheryl Miller's little brother played basketball.
Right.
Let it ride. That was the best Knicks reference for my money.
Yeah. Kramer trying to get tickets to see Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, for me, it's the limo, the excitement when they hear they're going to the Garden to learn that they're going to see Michael Jordan. Yeah. I mean, Michael Jordan was just, back in 1992, he was at another level. So, like, just to see their joy, to think about seeing Michael Jordan, I think for me was probably the best.
And that'll give you reason to watch your episode with Greeny, which was great. It just was recent. He talks about Bo Jackson and tells a story in it that reminded me of the Knicks reference, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll have to watch the episode. That's how we tease things here on the Wolff Den. You got to watch that episode of This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty with Mike Greenberg to find out the rest of that Bo Jackson story, which is hilarious, but also you can picture it as a Seinfeld episode. Where do you have an idea of where this is going, or where you want it to go?
Listen, the way I always say, man, like we got, I thought we were doing 20 episodes, to tell you the truth, man. If you listen to our 21st episode, I basically say like we're done, and then we're still going 3 years later. So as long as we keep getting guests, as long as America keeps watching, listen, we get new fans every day. Like, it's hard. This is a grind. You know that, man. So like, we're just still, I mean, maybe Chris has thoughts on it, but that's kind of where I'm at. Like, just keep doing it. It's fun.
I mean, I keep mentioning like an analysis or historian. We're chronicling the show, in my mind, better than anyone ever has. Talking to literally at length people that were on it, people that built it, executives that programmed it, like you name it. We're hitting it from every angle. So we're not done yet. I mean, we got a lot of big ones coming up, some of the biggest writers and producers from the show that you're going to learn a lot more about. So, the more we keep talking to people, learning, yeah, it'd be great to have Jerry and Jason and Julia for sure. But yeah, we're capturing the essence and we're building something here. So
what do you know about AI Seinfeld?
Very little. I've seen it like writes a script or something like this, right?
Well, it's just it's an AI generated Seinfeld, and it just keeps going on and on. It was on Twitch, but you could find it, and then they took it down.
Oh, it's actually video too.
It's video, and it's video, but it's not like it's like AI generated. It's not
right.
It's not good video. You're watching like a computer generated show, and it's got like it's fascinating. You should watch like an hour of it. It's just crazy how good it is. But it's like, I think that there could be, I don't know. I feel like there could be a show that's similar to it. It doesn't have to be Seinfeld, but whether it's a reunion or a movie or later in life, or maybe have, the young Seinfeld people, I feel like there should be something. I feel like there should be some, especially in the streaming age.
You're saying that what do you want? You want like a prequel to Seinfeld, or
I don't know. Even it's just a movie, a 2-hour special, something.
Yeah, listen. Look what they did to The Sopranos with that prequel. It was brutal. Like,
that was a rough watch.
I think wanting.
I've dealt with some of those guys personally. They're shysters in the true sense of the word. Shouldn't shock you. They're Sopranos people, and they're not.
Yeah, and the whole AI thing, I get how magical it is, and it could put writers, in a tough spot. But at the end of the day, you know, you need those actors to fulfill that writing, and it's just a cartoon or whatever that is, in my mind, doesn't do that justice.
Yeah, I think I'm just saying for the AI Seinfeld, you should listen to it. I'm not saying it's going to replace anything.
Gotcha.
Train wreck, but you can't stop watching. You'll watch it and you'll just keep watching it, and then you go back and watch it. It's a rabbit hole. Have you had The Wiz on?
No, but just to touch on that, what you just mentioned, like I didn't like the Curb reunion because the Curb reunion with Seinfeld, for those that saw where they kind of do Seinfeld, they took the 8-9 stuff, like they made George be, oh, George, and it just, at that point, it was too, they had their formula, they knew what they were doing. It was almost like they were too good and too polished, and it misses again.
That was also because it was on Curb. So
but I feel like that's what it would be if they tried to really do it almost. You
I'll
know
tell you this much. One of my top 5 scenes of all time in Curb is George and the tip coordination. That's one of my,
that was good. That was good.
But that was probably the best part of the reunion. I used that the other day. I'm like, if they sold less than 1,000 tickets, touch your ear. And the guy goes, all right. I can never get enough of it. I'm a purist. I get it, but I also would watch almost whatever they put out. Now, whatever they put out would have to hit to a certain standard for me to continue to watch it. You know, but I would go to see it. I'd tune it in. I don't know. I think this whole Cobra Kai is I would compare it to that. Like Cobra Kai, and although that was a movie to a show, not a show to a show, I love Cobra Kai, and I think they stayed true to sort of what it was, but also made it its own thing. Maybe because it's not comedy, that might work better. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. I could see where you're going with that. Cobra Kai is probably better than, it's more of a comedy, like based on the original Karate Kid was essentially a drama, right? I mean, they're kind of mocking Danielson and Miyagi.
We're a little bit over. I could stay for a little bit longer. Do you guys have to go? We can wrap it up, or we can talk for a little bit more. Up to you.
Yeah, we got a couple minutes.
A few more minutes. Yeah.
I got to figure out where as we're wrapping up here. We did Mount Rushmore.
What Jack got?
What do you get asked about the most?
You know, from people that know we have a podcast. If I talk to someone, I'm like, yeah, I got a podcast, that kind of thing. Or you mean like on the
either way?
I mean, we get asked a lot about the main. Like, if you had the main forum, we get that a lot, obviously, because everyone wants to know, like, how, you know. But and I guess the question that you asked, which is a really hard one to answer now that we've done so many episodes, it used to be a lot easier. But like, who was our favorite guest? Like that one, I still can't believe the people we've talked to, and I'm always like, you know, I always think we got a good, like that's definitely one of my top 5, and then I think about another one because now that we've had a lot more, it's harder to answer that one. And like Chris said, we dove into. I mean, we talked to the assistant to Larry David. I mean, this guy had stories like just crazy, like these, you don't even think about these things, but everything has a story behind it, right? Like Babu's name. We found out how Babu got his name, like things like that, just like random, you know, things like that. Like you're not going to get
great to know if you're a Seinfeld fan. I mean,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
Like, if you want to stump your friends with trivia, watch out. You'll hear a lot of stuff no one's heard before, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and listen, you said what? No, they don't really ask us anything. That's why it's great being on here. You're doing the questions. I like it, but we're usually asking all the questions. I mean, but the people we've spoken to, from Sid Farkas, the bra salesman, to Duncan Meyer during the race, to Dana Foley, Georgia psychiatrist, to Mickey. I mean, you know, we run the rampant here with all these guests, and they all offer really something unique. But the crazy thing is the majority, I mean, 99% just have great things to say. And then you get a couple of wrinkles, you know, Jerry asked me out, or Kramer asked me out, stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, they were Boy Scouts.
It felt like a fun thing to be a part of, where you have like, even like Community, like everyone talked about Chevy Chase was a real dick. Right. I mean, you had that one character who just didn't seem that way with Seinfeld. They generally enjoyed being around each other. I'm sure they had their moments. You're around someone for that long, you know, that many hours for that long, I'm sure, but it just felt that way, didn't
No, we heard the cast of Night Court was a bunch of D-bags.
We've heard a lot of bad stuff about Night Court, surprisingly.
The new Night Court?
The
old
old night court. The old night court. A lot of our guest stars were in night court too, and they don't have pleasant things to say.
Really, that's interesting.
But
I have 280 episodes. I could count on my hands the number of guests I wouldn't invite back, and it's not because they were terrible. It's just that maybe they weren't like great. It wasn't that thrilling, whatever. I don't need to hear names. Just about how many do you think? Or would you bring everyone back? Did you think everyone gave a pretty good, compelling episode for what you wanted?
From people who part of the show, we'd bring them all back, hands down. Some were harder to drag things out of than others, for sure. Some could have talked for 20 hours. But everyone that was a part of that show, we would have back. There's some other, as we were building the show, we just had guests that were somehow affiliated with Seinfeld. We would probably give a second look at. But for the most part, we've had a blast with everybody.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love doing anything that has to involve with the things that I love, like Seinfeld. And even if you look at my, that's why I didn't show you. If you look at my Twitter handle, it's Art Vandelay. And, Seinfeld it was in my dating profiles that, I love the Gators. I love Seinfeld. It just was a part of who I was. And when I left the ticket company and I went on my own, I named my company. I don't know if you can see here.
Vandelay Consulting, of course.
Now, I was Vandelay Consulting because in Florida, when I went to register, somebody already had Vandelay Industries. Okay, so I couldn't be Vandelay Industries. Now I'm Vandelay Consulting. The greatest story about this is I went on an interview, and it was like a healthcare sales company. I don't even know what it was. They made me meet with like 5 people. I didn't even want the job, whatever. I get home that night, and about 9 o'clock at night, I get a call. And he's like, yeah, this is, what's so-and-so from this company. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I heard you were in today, and I didn't get a chance. I was out. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I wanted to ask you some questions. And he starts grilling me over the name Vandelay. And for a second, I'm like, did one of my friends, like, is this real? I thought I was on Crank Yankers or Jerky Boys. I thought someone was pranking me. Because I'm like, look, if you know what Vandelay Consulting is, then it's hilarious. And if you don't know what it is, then you have no idea that who cares what it is. So for this guy to like go on and on about why'd you name it, I'm like, buddy, just I don't.
I mean, if you don't know what Jerky Boys is, go look those up. Those are great too. I'm glad you just referenced that.
That's my whole Jerky. I always say this: Jerky Boys and Seinfeld is my comedy. Like that's my 2 stalwarts right there. And going SNL 88 to 95, and that's all I need. That's it. Those 3 things.
Jerky Boys had a movie, and it was probably as excited as I ever was to go see a movie. Was the Jerky Boys movie, and it was maybe the worst movie I've ever seen because all they did was put photos and video to the thing they already did. I'm like, I don't want to watch that, but it could have been something great. And so I get the point of like, if you do something, it's got to be a home run. Otherwise you can really tarnish it. What's your favorite Jerky Boys? Ours is Saul Rosenberg.
Yeah, Saul Rosenberg is probably
my shoes. Yeah,
my shoes, my glasses. My daughters still say that because I say it all the time. So now they're saying it. My daughter's like, I gotta find my shoes. So
we like punitive damages.
Yeah.
Can I sue you people?
Everybody.
I haven't heard these for 30 years, but now you're bringing it up.
I can go on and on, but don't get me started on Jerky Boys.
Terrace Pizza is another great one. I fucking kill you. My wife sick, throwing up.
Pounds, baby, pounds.
And then the other one was Sal was looking for a job. He's like, yeah, well, boy, what do you say? You and me, we go paint each other.
You're silly.
He likes the sidecar smashing the. I mean, I could talk comedy and movies and what do you do this a lot? Like quote stuff for movies, or is there a movie that you guys quote a lot individually? In the way that you'll quote Seinfeld, we do Office Space and The Wedding Crashers and Old School. I mean, I quote all of these in the same amount of time, same way I quote Seinfeld. Yeah,
I'm like a Dumb and Dumber, Billy Madison. Maybe I do Fletch a lot. I'll do I don't know, every once in a while, a lot of SNL or 88 to 95 SNL stuff we like.
Dr. Rosenpenis. It's one of my favorite clips. I can watch that 100 times.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, from that era for sure. Like just kind of pop in your head. But Seinfeld definitely tops the list, and hence that's why we're doing this thing.
What would your podcast be about if it couldn't be about Seinfeld and you had to do something either individually or together?
It wouldn't, and that's the problem.
I'm saying if you had to, let's say a gun to your head, you got to do a podcast, you got to do 20 episodes. What would you do?
With O'Hara or by myself? By myself, I'd probably do music by myself. But with O'Hara, we could talk about anything really. Maybe sports or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: we learned from our first guest and why he joined the podcast is because this was niche.
Yeah.
Podcasts out there, it's just friends talking about things. It's not. Nobody cares about that. Like you gotta find something niche, focus on it, and make it something versus just having conversation.
You can do that. I'll argue because the Wolff Den is just conversation, and we've had some really good. I haven't turned it into the podcast where I'm clipping it and putting it up there. I will, and I have a lot. I have 200 out of 280. I probably have 150 that people are really going to want to listen to, especially when you clip it. But I do agree with you on the hey. Why wouldn't I want to come on and talk Seinfeld? Because it's a lot harder to try and get a guest on when you're telling, well, what's the show about and who's listening? I don't know who's listening. Whoever wants to hear you talk. That's who's going to listen to this. Who likes Seinfeld? If you don't like Seinfeld, you're probably not going to tune into this episode.
Exactly.
It's like Greeny said. You watched the Greeny one, right? Greeny nailed it when his wife mentioned us, and he was like, "You don't have to tell me what it's about." It's he knew the title of it and he knew what it was about, and he's like, "I'll join. I'll be on." So,
who said these pretzels are making me thirsty better, George or Kramer?
I mean, I think George. I think it's George's line. I don't know. That's my.
I go K-Man. Yeah, I go K-Man because it is his line.
Fair.
I mean, they wrote it.
You made the argument. Yeah,
Woody wrote it for him.
Yeah, you could make the argument that Elaine at the end with when she's feeding the guy, she just like says it like half. These pretzels are making me like that's a good one too.
What do you think about George's? You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, it was Jack Nicholson's birthday, I think, yesterday. Yeah, it's solid. He's
you like it? You like his execution of it?
Yeah, I mean,
I have the same reaction Jerry and Elaine have, where they're just like pretty as good as anything else, right? It's
yeah.
Another one we use, the write-off.
Love the write-off. Well, the write-off is great.
The write-off.
You have your own business, right?
Yeah,
you know how that
I
goes.
say that all the time,
yeah,
and I actually literally do use the same answer.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is, but that's what it is, and they're writing it off. I mean,
that's what Kramer. I mean, that's what I like about Kramer. That kind of stuff, or when when he fixes Elaine's neck, and he learned it from a guy by the World Trade Center, or he only watches Canadian C-SPAN, and like those little things, and how he has Tor Ekman. He knows Tor Ekman. That's the Kramer I like.
Tor was man, that episode was really good with Jerry. I liked it a lot. I just think that's just the scene of here when he's Cavaliers 87. He's great. By the way, he's Ned Ryerson.
We had him on.
Yeah, he's an upcoming guest.
I thought we already posted that. We didn't post that yet.
That's one of my favorite scenes. Is Ned Ryerson, bang, and he punches him. I use that all the time too. Could Seinfeld have been successful with only 3 of the 4?
I don't know. I would actually say no. I don't think so. But
you rank the importance. I mean, the importance, not who was the best, who was the most important to Seinfeld. If I was to say, obviously Jerry's got to be there, but if you would have removed any of the 3, which order would you have removed them in to think we still might be able to have a show? I would think Elaine's got to be there just to have a female presence in.
I think the foundation of the show is Jerry and George.
Yeah.
So I think you could scrape off the other 2 and still have a successful show. Would it be Seinfeld? Probably not. But I think those 2 are the foundation, the friendship, you name it. Kramer and Elaine are all-time greats, but in theory, I would peel those 2 off.
Give me a couple names of characters on Seinfeld. It could include the top 4 that not that you would want to hang out with because of whatever, that you would have hung out with because those were your people, right? You understand what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't hang out with Jerry because he complaints.
Oh, Kramer. Yeah, we're getting a beer with Kramer and his buddies for sure. I'm trying to think who else.
I wouldn't hang out with Newman. I'd
Yeah,
want to hang out with Newman. I'm saying
Kramer.
Newman wouldn't be in the group of people that I'm hanging out with just because of, I'm saying, my real life.
Yeah, that's a good one. Definitely Kramer. Like, I think he can hang with anybody.
I got one for you. I think. You might like this one. What's his face? The guy with the tickets. Quick scene, but I like that guy. The guy that has the devil tickets for him.
Oh, Putty.
No. The guy who has the tickets.
Alec Berg.
Oh,
Yeah, Alec Berg. Alec Berg.
Oh, I thought you were going to give me Harry Fong.
Another good tickets guy. I mean, Crazy Joe DeVola is one of my favorite all time. I wouldn't hang out with him though, but yeah, I liked him. I liked the doorman a little. What's his face?
He's hilarious too. 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah.
I'd get a beer with Rick Levington, who called George a loser. He's the boss.
Sid Farkas. Although you got to watch him with around your wife, I guess. But Farkas was always fun.
One of my favorite scenes, also real random, is just Jerry doing Overture outside. I just love that scene.
The opera's an all-timer, dude. Yeah. The opera's an all-timer.
Yeah, Lloyd Braun. I get a beer with Lloyd Braun. Why not? I think.
Which Lloyd? That's another one who changed.
We spoke to both of them. Again, we're partial. I prefer the original Lloyd just because it's an all-time episode. But both were incredible.
We also quote, "He did me a personal favor." That's what we quote on that. He did it today, just when we were talking about who you could talk to with, talking about just like sort of quotes that come out. I've got hand, you're going to need it. I mean, I've
never done a solid before. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah, there's so many quotes that are just, man, I don't think there's like, when you start thinking about Friends, I think about Pivot. We were on a break. I mean, can I say 20 quotes? Maybe if I thought hard, I could come up with 20. But there's no show that has the amount of quotes. And maybe it's because I like it so much and I watch it so much. But I watch a lot of shows. I watch Community and Big Bang Theory and Office and all of these and Friends. And I don't get the same. They don't stick with me the same.
Yeah, that's the art of this show. That's why 33 million people watch it every week.
Yeah. We're going to let you guys go with the same question that everybody gets. It's not Seinfeld related, ironically. You can spend 24 hours with anybody in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. It might be Seinfeld related. Who would you choose and what would you guys do? Now you have an opportunity to say Seinfeld or Larry David, but is there someone else you'd rather spend 24 hours with, a full day to do anything you want?
Probably, I don't know, Bill Murray maybe. If I don't know, just throwing it out there, but put me on the spot.
So Bill over Larry and Jerry.
Definitely over Jerry. Larry, I feel like Larry would get sick. I know it's a hypothetical, but I still think he wouldn't last 24 hours. I don't think that would go haywire quick. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going Seinfeld, I'd probably choose one of Jerry's girlfriends for 24 hours.
Just pick anyone off the top of your head. It doesn't have to be Seinfeld.
But if not, George Washington.
No, they had to be alive.
I thought you said alive or dead.
No, I said they have to be alive and you can't be related to them.
Yeah. That's a tough one, man. Just because we talked about it, you brought it up. Bo Jackson. Like, what, interesting to be such an athlete of his stature during that time and to lose it all. And,
he's got a food product line. He's doing some good stuff in the business world. So I might be able to make that happen someday. I'm working on some stuff with his company and the people who know him. So
nice.
Greeny might be able to introduce you to him someday. I did have, as I thought about, you mentioned Bill Murray. Give me one actor or celebrity that you would have liked to seen on Seinfeld as a guest star. Bill Murray would have been great to find him in there.
I think Chevy Chase probably would have been pretty good too. He could have been the
Close Talker.
Or the close talker, or the guy I just mentioned, the doorman. I feel like he could have been a good doorman too.
How about Steve Martin as the muscle? I'm drawing a blank. We've been talking. And he trains him.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when they had the kitschy famous people on, I enjoyed that less. I like that.
I agree. Yeah.
I like that these guys who became stars because of the show, versus having a Courtney Cox on or something that, you know.
I mean, they could have had someone like Keith Hernandez be themselves also.
Well, they had a few of them. Mr. Tomei was a great one of those where they were themselves. You know, everyone loved the Raquel Welch too. Bette Midler. You know, these types. Mel Torme.
1 in a million to 1 shot, Doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved to. Yeah, there's so many, but yeah. Who's that chucker? That's another. Who's this chucker? Another. I'm not driving to the airport. I mean, we talk about that all the time. Here, as you say, one last line. Well, you showed her who you are.
They took it out. Yeah.
I guess I keep thinking a question we go all night, but another question. Did they end it? Did you like the way they ended it? I know you guys liked the last episode. Did you like the way they ended it? They're all sitting there. You really have to go back and watch to get the top button reference to, right? I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, I always say that this is my line on this one is, you know, first of all, you're not going to please everyone. And second, it was the Super Bowl, right? This was this show that everyone's tuning into. Even if you never really watched Seinfeld, you're watching the finale. Like to your point about MASH, everyone's like, that show was for them. It was for, let's just give us a recap. Like, I didn't like how they had to do the flashback to show you the person on the stand talking about the story. Because if you watch the show all the time, you knew it. Like they were feeding into that. And I just think it was like this. It was like New Year's Eve or the Super Bowl. Those things where it's like everyone's got to tune in. It's not really for those fans who are kind of, you know, quote unquote,
it's a made for TV event.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest complaints I have of other events. It's made for TV, and the people are actually the fans. They get left out because they got to deal with it.
It wasn't a bad episode though. I think it gets way too much flack. Like, how are you going to? No matter how, and then they were going to get complaints. I like that they still stuck with no hugging aside from the montage that you showed earlier, which wasn't really the show. They stuck with the ending to not be hugging. You know, they tried to do that little thing on the plane with Elaine, and that was their joke on it. But yeah, I don't know. That's I don't know. Chris might have more. That's where I stand.
Did you like?
You know where I stand. I thought they should have finished the series after season 5 when George got the job with the Yankees. But that's just me. But you know, to Tony's point, you couldn't make everyone happy. I think it was a very solid show. But again, finales are impossible. You know that.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, check it out. This podcast is making me thirsty. You can check out.
We still
on? Freeze on us?
Yeah.
Well, we lost you, Matt. He's saying really nice things, though.
This podcast is making me thirsty. Subscribe on YouTube, SeinfeldPodcast.com as well. But the YouTube's where it's at. We got visuals and things like that. And at this thirsty on Twitter.
We out?
We got to be, I think, right? I mean, froze up at the end there.
SeinfeldPodcast.com. It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube.
We lost him again. Matt, thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. We had a great time, Matt. Thank you so much.